Hello, my name is Shirley Self, and I'm here to talk astrology. Tonight I wanted to talk about Joe Biden. I've talked about him before, but Mercury is retrograde, so I'm going to talk about him again. Joe Biden, and here's his information. He was born the 20th of November, 1942 at 8:30 a.m. in Scranton, PA. First thing you notice about him, other than the fact that he's got this interesting thing across his ascendant descendant, is this stellium in Scorpio. He is a Scorpio. He is a Scorpio, and it's in the 12th house. Now, often people who are of benefit to others, who devote themselves to others, have a 12th house sun. They're good people who, and that's what you do with a 12th house sun. You either work to your own detriment, or you work to others' benefit. And if you work to others' benefit, often it's still to your own detriment, but it improves the world, and that's what Pisces is about. So, Joe Biden is running for president. Who'd have thought? He was reluctant to, South Node down here in the 3rd house in Pisces. He was reluctant to run and had to be convinced to run. He is a moon phase 13. And it's incredibly relevant to this horoscope, which screams of the dilemma of a moon phase 13. One thing that the moon phase, now let me talk about the moon phase 13 for a second. That's in the 2nd quarter, the water quarter, and it is the phase that cannot be skipped, and it follows the initiation phases of 11 and 12. And those initiation phases eliminated the past, and what was born was a new will to become a new and ideal human being. And so moon phase 12 makes the discovery, the complete discovery of this treasure trove of God, spirit within. He finds the higher power, and it's down in the belly. And so what 13 has to do is 13 heads up into purgatory. 13 is responsible for bringing that ability to contact God, to bringing those ideas and all of that true creativity of the being, this person, out to the benefit of the world. And so what 13 has to do is to finish what 12 did. 13 and 14 have to finish what 12 killed the pig. This was the initiation of Persephone, where she goes down into the depths with Pluto, and there she is. The pig is sacrificed. 12 kills the pig. Your own pig. Your I want for me, me. And what 13 has to do is to bring that, not only to bring forward the treasures found in the depths, but to eliminate the past habits of wanting, past habits of doing, virtually past habits of being. And this is difficult. And the way 13 makes these choices is by making choices. He has to decide, this is mine, that's not. A thing has to resonate. I'm a 14, and I'm very particular. I've got the 13 thing. I'm very, very particular about what I bring to me. And my husband has been incredibly discouraged at giving me gifts because I'll go, eh, you know. He's learned to wait and ask me what it is I want, because I'm very fussy. 13 has to be very fussy. And look at Joe Biden. His decisions over here are his mask. His decisions are the mask. Make the right decisions. He pays dearly for wrong decisions. Look at that. Saturn is opposing. This is Juno. I don't always include these asteroid ladies, but they're seem to be so potent in Joe's chart that I thought I would bring them in. So this Saturn is opposing this Juno, and so he's got to choose his people. He's got to choose the people he partners with very carefully. He has to, and because it's opposite Juno, let me talk about Juno for a minute. Now, Juno was the goddess, wife of Zeus. And he was, of course, a faithless partner. And so much of Juno has to do with being faithful and being loyal and just being doing your part in relationships. But the tendency, because of the Saturn, is faithless relationships. Joe has, let's talk about his Scorpio here. He's got Venus, the Sun, Mercury, and Mars in Scorpio. That Venus in Scorpio fortunately follows the Sun, does not lead the Sun. His Mercury leads the Sun, his oriental planet. The one that rises ahead of the Sun is your oriental planet, and it will tell you virtually kind of what your big goal is. What's the goal of the Sun in this lifetime? Joe's goal is to communicate deep things, Scorpio. But this Venus does follow very closely. The Sun is at 28 and the Venus is at 29, Scorpio. And so just talking about Joe's childhood, my guess is that he was bullied. You get the Saturn Uranus over here opposing his ascendant, and you say, yeah, I was bullied. But I'll tell you, but I have never known a man with a Sun-Venus conjunction, either ahead of it or behind it, that wasn't bullied. And I mean sometimes bullied badly. And I think Joe was bullied. His wound, his Chiron up here, is in Leo. So it's ruled by this Mars. And so it's a wound to his animus, his maleness. It's because he is so very strongly of a feminine nature. This is an aggressive feminine nature. We're talking Scorpio with a Mars in Scorpio. But he's got the moon is ruled by this Venus, and therefore the moon is ruled by this Mars. Mars rules this whole chart. Let me go through that with you. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is here ruled by the moon. The moon is ruled by this Venus, and this Venus is ruled by Mars, and Mars is in its rulership and is exceedingly powerful. And because he's got all these fixed signs, look at him. There's 4 there, and Pluto there, and the moon. This is an incredibly stubborn man. Persistent, stubborn, and I think that's what brought him through, is because he is not been conquered, is unconquered. And that's because he's in contact, like a good 13, with his spiritual nature. So let me see what else I want to talk. Okay, let's look at this yod. This yod, yod is the finger of God. And for those people who have it, it feels like the finger of God. It's the moon is in conjunct the sun. Oh, it's in conjunct the sun. It's a 4 degree off but it's the sun and the moon. They are, they cast a big energy, you can't quite call it shadow, but, and it is about exactly within a degree of in conjunct the Neptune. But he's got a sun, Venus here, trine this Neptune. And it gave him a tremendous amount of fortitude and forgiveness, that he was able to, virtually able to overcome his childhood. So we've got the Yod, the finger of God. This moon is very important. Notice that it is in the degree of the nodes. This means it's karmic. I mean, it's not just, it's important. And it's the foot of this foot. It's the nail of this finger of God. Now, what happens here at the nail is these two gang up on it and virtually transform it. There's a Pluto energy going on down here, the nail of the finger of God here. It's to transform. And notice that the moon here is squared to Pluto. And that speaks to a lot of the sorrow and loss that he has had in his life. That's an issue with the 13, and of all of the phases of that rectangle, the 13, the 17, the 27, and the 3, they all deal with loss. They have to deal with loss. And he has had his losses. He virtually was, his first family was nearly wiped out by a auto accident as he was entering the Senate. He entered the Senate in deep mourning. So those losses, the thing is that Joe's moon phase and its creative genius, the moon phase 17, his creative genius, are two of the most artistically and intellectually creative in the whole cycle. And so his creative genius is right down here at 24 degrees of Pisces. Now that's a fixed star. I think it's called Markab, but it's the degree of sorrow, the 20, 24, 25 degrees of Pisces, the degree of sorrow. And the thing about moon phase 17, that creative genius, is that they deal with a shifting world. The world is never stable under their feet. It's like, well, look at his mutable, he's got mutable signs on all the angles. And that means the world is never a stable place. You can't really depend on what was here today to be here tomorrow. And under these shifting circumstances, they're inspired to creativity. And notice that Joe must be inspired to bring order, Saturn, out of chaos. And that is his mask, is the ability to speak, to talk, and to bring logic into chaos. He's got a tremendous amount of water here. He's got this is water, and he's got Jupiter in water, and that brings, there's a tremendous emotional pressure on him. He's very vulnerable to other people's emotions, and this is an issue with 13. 13 has got to develop immunity almost to other people's emotional trauma, because it's so important that he be able to read the world emotionally and clearly and cleanly. And that's why he has to get rid of all the emotional baggage that had been gathered through the first 12 moon phases of the cycle. All that emotional baggage must be left behind, and so that he is emotionally clear, so that he can make the right decisions. Now, let's see. This Saturn in Gemini conjunct Uranus in Gemini is one of the indications of why he had a stutter. First of all, he's got this tremendous emotional pressure on him. I mean, it just builds up. The urge to, I have to say that, I have to communicate, I have to get this across, and it's deep. The Scorpio, and then the Jupiter is in the Scorpio's house. I mean, he wants to communicate deeply, and the pressure builds up on him, and in order to get it out, he has to virtually unscramble it. The Saturn-Uranus conjunction is most difficult there. And he's got that Saturn rules the house, the third house. This is his third house, the house of communication. And it's ruled by Aquarius. You may not be able to see that right now. I'm not sure how, I didn't put it in very dark. But that Saturn rules his communication. And he can just give up and not bother to say anything. Or he can do the North Node, which is be clear about what you want to say, be specific about what you need to say. Virgo. It's Virgo. And get it across, because this guy is a teacher. He's got Chiron right up there in the 9th house of higher education. Chiron. Now, when you get a Chiron up in here, or often in Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, you've got a kid that's haven't received a wound. The family hasn't given him a wound. The family situation, but the world situation has wounded him, and this was in his schooling that, and not the higher education, but just going out into the world. He was bullied, he was ridiculed. And so the Chiron, the wound, is right there in the 9th house. And that Chiron's the teacher, the healer. And Virgo is the healer, up there in the teaching of higher education. So this guy has a lot to tell us, to teach us. And that's what his Chiron has to do. He's got a lot of aspects to this Chiron, but let me show you something I found really interesting. His Chiron is so very important, and so is his Saturn-Uranus. Well, here's his card. This is the card for a 13, the Empress. And you know the path of the Empress. She runs on the Kamala, the base of the superior triangle, along the base of that superior triangle, Saturn on one side, Uranus, that's the path of the Empress. And she is virtually the path of choices. Everything is available there. And that's what makes this Chiron so interesting, is because it's conjunct his North Node, and it helps him to deal with this chaos and order. Chiron runs, but when it's in like in Libra, it's making things solid and often turning things to concrete. And when it running, and so as it moves toward Uranus, the Uranian energy gets stronger and stronger, and chaos is the ultimate in Aries thing that happens with Chiron. There is the old order is shattered and broken down, and as Chiron moves back toward Libra and Saturn, things become very orderly again. So, as you probably know, Chiron right now is in Aries. I think about 7 degrees maybe, and so we see the chaos. We are we understand the chaos. So Chiron is really important to this guy. Really important. That he go to the trouble. It's not easy for him to communicate. Like I say, the urge to tell you something deep and important is so intense in him that it comes out as a stutter. And he has to keep it together. I saw him in the debate the other night, and he'd stuttered a couple of times. But he's learned to take a deep breath and bring it back and give him a second. And he speaks slowly, which you have to do. If there's so much deep stuff you have to say, you have to be very careful. North Node in Virgo. This is a house of communication, you know. These are the houses, 3rd and 9th are your houses of communication. And he has his nodes there. So a nice thing that he's got with this moon is he's got a aspect of 165 degrees to Mars. And I don't know that, I think it might be called a quindicile. I think Noel Till named it that. And that might be cool. What it is it's 15 degrees off the opposition. And how it works is it gives you the tenacity of a snapping turtle. I mean, the ability to just go at it. And Joe's got that. And it is a blessing. This problem he has down here with the vulnerability, especially to people he loves. There's this in the house of children. And his children... and it is interesting to me that the only place the Donald Trump seems to be able to attack Joe Biden is here at the finger of God, the fingernail of God here, the moon. So let me see what else I wanted to say about Joe. Okay. Let's talk about higher purpose here. This is the United States. This is the United States midheaven. It's actually the 2nd degree of Libra is U.S. midheaven. He's got his body of fate is right here at 24 Virgo, always opposite the creative genius, down here at 24 Pisces and the degree of sorrow. So right up there at 24 to Virgo, the United States Neptune is at 22 Virgo. This is the United States Uranus right here. It's at 8 degrees Gemini. Let's see what else we got. Pisces. There's an awful lot in this chart that connects into the United States chart. 7 degrees. Oh, the Pluto. I didn't mention the Pluto. The Pluto is on our North Node, 7 degrees Leo. The Jupiter is on our Mercury, which is at 23 degrees Cancer. So I like to say that connections are quite startling, intense. So he's got the Gemini that the United States seems to demand. We always have a Gemini, Sagittarius, something or other going on with whoever we decide to put in the presidency. And if they don't have any Gemini, they don't often get reelected. So I think that might have been George I's problem, George Bush. Anyway, so all his fixed signs make him really stubborn. Maybe make him be able to persist, and he's tenacious, and he's a gentleman, and I really appreciate that. I personally was not rooting for Joe Biden, and was disappointed in his choice, in his being chosen by the party. But I appreciate what he's done, and I am pretty excited about what he's capable of doing. If he can control this emotional vulnerability here. That's the issue with a moon phase 13. Control your emotional vulnerability, because then you'll be able to make the right decisions, and you'll be impermeable. Impermeable. He's got good ideas. Look at this, what he's got here, and I don't know that I've ever talked about them before. This is Pallas Athena, and this is Vesta, and you've got a conjunction right here. And that's just incredible creative ideas. Yeah, creative ideas. And they're in good aspect to this Saturn. So I think you can make use of them. And you notice it's square the Mars. So the Mars has to actually actualize them. The Mars has got to do it. And it's not easy because, like I say, it's hard for Joe. He thinks too deep. It's a problem with a Mercury in Scorpio. They're also really, Mercury in Scorpio is also really secretive. And he's got a 12th house Mercury in Scorpio. So yeah, the tendency is to be secretive. But the North Node says get out there and tell it like it is. And give him the details. The details. Virgo is the details. So his moon is trying this Chiron, and so the moon says don't take everything, don't take anything for granted, and he can't take anything for granted. He lives in a very shifting world. The mutable angles just don't make for great stability. You can have very stable relationships, and he wants a stable relationship, but it's hard because it's conjunct Uranus and it's opposite his ascendant. He has to work at it. He has to work at it. The Sun is square Chiron, and that means that well, it means the world changes a lot on him, and his purpose will change with it. So he has to have a grand purpose. And his grand purpose is to change the world. Change the world. So what else did I want to tell you? Oh, the Mercury is also square Chiron. And that demands that he be an innovator. Squares are pretty much just demands. You deal with this. You learn this. And they're internal. They're internal conflicts that you have to deal with. So the Mars also is in a wide square to this Pluto. And Mars square Pluto is violent, and he has dealt with violence. Notice it's a waning square. The Mars has moved on 5 or 6 degrees, so it's 6 degrees. It has waned already 6 degrees, and that gives him. When you look at the angles, when you look at the conjunctions and squares and oppositions, you want to pay attention to whether they're waxing or waning, whether we're closing in or whether they've already been there and you've already taken the bullet and now you're dealing with it. You're God willing smarter. So this is a 6 degree waning square, and that means that it's kind of a sextile. It's kind of, yeah, okay, I know how to do that. I can do that. If that comes up again, I can do it and make it turn out okay. You know, you can look at difficult aspects in your chart, and you can say that, okay, the the difference between, well, you can look at any of them that aren't aspected. And when they come into aspect, pay attention to how many degrees it has taken to come into that aspect, because something will happen to you at that age. So we've got 6 degrees between this Pluto and this Mars. And so I am going to guess that when he went to school, when he started school, he met this Pluto. His Mars met this Pluto. And that's when the bullying started. So you can say, okay, for instance, I was 2.5 when I had my first concussion. And that's how many degrees there are between my moon in Cancer and my Pluto in Leo. 3 degrees. And so I can relate all my broken bones and concussions to aspects to Saturn and Pluto. So that's Joe Biden. He's a gentleman and a scholar. And I think we'll be fortunate if he's elected. And he's chosen a good partner. And I will do Kamala Harris in another video, and do a composite chart between Kamala and Joe to show you how they work together. So that's, I will probably have more to say about Joe when I'm talking about Kamala. I get her confused with Camilla, the Duchess of something or other, married to Prince Charles. He deserved to have a decent woman. That's another thing about a moon phase 13. Prince Charles is a moon phase 13. And 13 is very, very picky about who they marry. Notice the pickiness there about who they want to marry, who they can pair up with. So I don't know his wife's birth date, and so I could see if he had married properly, because a moon phase 13 needs to go over and to hook up with somebody who's over there at the mask, somebody who can be their mask, and that's usually around moon phase 27. So 26, 27, 28 is a good match. Or around moon phase 3. The body of fate is a good match for a 13. Prince Charles at first married Diana, who was a moon phase 18. And unfortunately, moon phase 18 is the height of the emotional trauma. Moon phase 18 is the emotional man. That's what Yeats called it, and have every reason to be emotional. But it's very difficult for a 13 to deal with it, because they just drown. Their mind just drowns, and they can't make a decent decision. So when Prince Charles married Camilla, who was his original love, she's a moon phase 27. So it worked out. I hope that Joe has found someone who doesn't oppress him with their emotions, oppress him with too much emotion, because it's hard for him to deal with it. He's going to have to deal with the fact that the United States is going through a lot of emotional trauma right now. I wanted to point out that the United States is going to have a new moon, and the sun and the moon of the United States will be in the 20th degree of Pisces. So at that new moon. So things, of course, if you're going to run for president, you're going to have connections with the United States. for me, I can look up somebody's horoscope, somebody I really like, and I can find out why I like them, because there's a connection in my horoscope to theirs. Like someday I'm going to look up Tom Waits, because he's not everybody's cup of tea, but I just adore him. I know. One of his songs is one of my favorite songs. So I need to find his horoscope and see how he's connected with my Venus, huh? So, so that's all I have to say for tonight. I'll have more to say, because I want to talk about Kamala, and I want to talk about probably the election and the inauguration. So see you then, and until then, wear your mask, wash your hands, tell the people you love that you love them, and God bless. Bye-bye.